Hey guys, I'm going to finish up chapter 7 today and move into a little bit of chapter 8. So when we left off, I forgot to look up, I had said I was going to look up what fire lighters are. Let's see if I can do that real quick. Look up what a fire lighter is. Let's see, fire lighter. Not having a lot of luck. Let's see if I can go to the images and take a peek. It's got a lot of different pictures of some different things, but I don't think it's quite what we're thinking. Oh, here we go. Pop out fire lighters. Let's see. These are interesting. There's something a little different. It says fire lighters. They're like a little... I don't know if you guys will be able to see this or not. They're like little pieces of cotton or something like that. This is a brand. It says Redhead's Fire Lighters. So, I don't know if we've got those in our country. I'm going to have to take a look around. That's something different. So, anyhow, he broke off a piece of the fire lighter. Let's see. Omri hesitated, then went to the refrigerator. "Don't eat now, Omri. It's nearly supper time." "Just a tiny bit," he said. There was a lovely chunk of raw meat on a plate. Omri sniffed his fingers, wiped them hard on his sweater to get the stink of the fire lighter off them, then took a big carving knife from out of the drawer, and with an anxious glance at his mother's back, began sawing a corner off the meat. Luckily it was steak and cut easily. Even so, he nearly had the whole plate off the shelf and onto the floor before his corner had come off. You ever cut something and the plate slides around? Can you imagine trying to do that in the refrigerator? His mother swung around just as he closed the refrigerator door. "A tiny bit of what?" she asked. She often reacted late to things. Nothing," he said, hiding the raw bit of meat on his hand. "Mom, can I borrow a tin plate?" "I haven't got such a thing." "Yes, you have. The one you bought Adil to go camping." "That's in Adil's room somewhere. I haven't got it." "A tiny bit of what?" But Omri was already on his way upstairs. Adil was in his room, doing his homework. What do you want?" he asked the second Omri crept in. "That plate, your camping one." "Oh, that," Adil said, going back to his French homework. "Well, can I have it?" "Yeah, I suppose so. It's over there somewhere." Omri found it eventually in an old knapsack. That's another word for a backpack. Covered with disgusting bits of baked beans, dry and hard as cement. He hurried across to his own room. Whenever he'd been away from it for even a few minutes, his heart was beating in a panic as he opened the door for fear of what he might find or not find. The burden of a constant worry was beginning to wear him out. But all was as he had left it. Patrick was crouching near the seed tray. Little Bear was directing him to take tops off several of the jars of poster paint while he himself fashioned something almost too small to see. "It's a paintbrush," whispered Patrick. "He cut off a bit of his own hair and he's trying to tie it to a tiny scrap of wood he found, about the size of a big splinter." "Pour a bit of paint into the lid so he can dip into each," said Omri. Meanwhile, he was scraping the dry beans off the plate with his nails. He took the fragment of fire lighter and the twigs out of his pocket, arranging them in the center of the plate. He washed a bit of the meat in his bedside water glass. He'd had a wonderful idea for a spit to cook it on. From a flat box, which is the first erector set that had been neatly laid out, but now it was in chaos, he took a rod, already bent into a handle shape, and pushed it through the meat. Then from some small bits of the set, he quickly made a sort of stand for it to rest on, with legs each side of the fire so that the meat hung over the middle of it. "Let's light it now," said Patrick, who was getting very excited again. "Little Bear, come and see your fire," said Omri. Little Bear looked up from his paints and then ran down the ramp across the carpet and vaulted onto the edge of the plate. Omri struck a match and lit the fire lighter. I know what they are now. Fire lighters. They're not matches. They're little pieces of paper that have been soaked in like lighter fluid or something like that to help get a fire going faster. Okay, I remember. I know what they're talking about. Where was I? Omri struck a match and lit the fire lighter, which flared up at once with a bluish flame, engulfing the twigs and the meat at once. The twigs gave off a gratifying crackle while they lasted, but the fire lighter gave off a very ungratifying stench, which made Little Bear wrinkle up his nose. "Stink," he cried. "Spoil meat." "No, it won't," Omri said. "Turn the handle of the spit, Little Bear." Evidently, he wasn't much used to spits, but he soon got the hang of it. The chunk of meat turned and turned in the flame, and soon lost the raw red look and began to look gray and then brown. The good juicy smell of roasting beef began to compete with the spirituous reek of the fire lighter. Said Little Bear appreciatively, turning till the sweat ran off his face. Meat! He had thrown his chief's cloak and his chest shone red. Patrick couldn't take his eyes off of him. "Please, Omri," he whispered, "could I have one? Couldn't I just choose one, a soldier or anything I liked, and make him come to life in your cupboard?" And that's the end of chapter 7. So chapter 8 is called Cowboy, and it's interesting how they do that. I don't know if that'll be backwards when you see it, but it says cowboy with an exclamation point. So it's definitely emphasizing something. Omri gaped at him. He hadn't thought of this, but of course, now that he did, it was obvious. No boy who knew the secret could possibly rest until he had a little live person of his own. "Patrick, it's not like you think, just something to play with." "Of course not. You've explained all about it. Now just let me But you have to think about it first." No, stop. You can't. Can you hear my doggies barking back there? You can't yet. And anyway, I don't agree to you using one of mine. Omri didn't know why he was so reluctant. It wasn't that he was mean. He just knew somehow that something awful would happen if he let Patrick have his own way. But it wasn't easy to stop him. Omri had grabbed him, but he wrenched free. "I've got to," he said. "I've got to." He stretched out his hand toward the pile of soldiers again. They struggled. Patrick seemed to have gone a bit crazy. Suddenly, Omri felt the rim of the tin plate under his feet shifting. He shoved Patrick out of the way and they both stared down. The plate had tipped. The fire slipped off onto the carpet. Little Bear, with a yell, had leaped clear and was now waving his arms and shouting horrible things at them. His roast meat had disappeared under Omri's foot, which instinctively stomped down on the fire to put it out. He felt squishy feeling under his shoe. "Now look, we've spoiled the meat," he shouted at Patrick. "If all you can do is fight, I wish I'd never brought you." Patrick looked mullish. "It was your fault. You should have let me put something in that cupboard." Omri lifted his shoe. Underneath was a nasty mess of burnt stuff, squash meat, and bent erector set. Little Bear let out a wail. "You no great spirit, only stupid boy. Fight, spoil good meal. You feel shame." "Maybe we can just rescue it." He crouched down and disentangled the meat from the mess, burning his fingers. He tried to brush it clean, but it was no use. It was all mixed up with the smelly stuff from the fire lighter and stuck with bits of carpet fiber. "I'm terribly sorry, Little Bear," he mumbled. "No good sorry. Little Bear hungry, work all day, cook meat. Now what? I chop you down like tree." It's getting a little fussy. And to Omri's horror, he saw Little Bear run to where the battle axe was lying, pick it up, and jump towards his leg, swinging it in great circles as he came. Patrick fairly danced with excitement. "Isn't he fantastically brave, though? Much more than David with Goliath." Omri felt the whole thing was going too far. He removed his leg from the harm's way. "Little Bear, calm down," he said. "I've said I'm sorry." Little Bear looked at him blazing-eyed. Can you imagine somebody with blazing eyes, how angry they must be? Then he rushed over to the chair Omri used as his table and began chopping wedges out of the leg. Oh, Omri used at his table and began chopping wedges out of the leg. Stop it! Stop it, or I'll put you back in the cupboard. Little Bear stopped abruptly and dropped the axe. He stood with his back to them, his shoulders heaving. I'll get you something to eat right now, something delicious. Go paint. It'll make you feel better. It won't be long. To Patrick, he said, hang on, I can smell supper cooking. I'll go and get a bit of whatever we're having, and he rushed downstairs without stopping to think. Okay. I'm going to stop right there. And just a reminder, tomorrow we're doing Chromebook and packet pickup. So if I see you there, let me know if you're one of the ones that's listening to the story. If I don't see you, I hope you're enjoying it. You guys have a great night. Thanks.